You're listening to Kayak Flyer with your host, Sean. This week we're brought to you by Tennessee Trailers, OutdoorAdventureTrailers.com, the best way to get your kayak to and from the water. Cutthroat Furled Leaders, the only leaders that I use. Cutthroat Furled Leaders are guaranteed to perform for whatever species of fish you're chasing. Check them out at cutthroatfurledleaders.com. Save 15% promo kayak. Stoneflynets.com, the very best in handcrafted and custom fishing nets made in the great state of Arkansas. Check out Stonefly Nets at stoneflynets.com. Well, I hope everybody had a happy holiday. I know we have been busy here at my house, and we've been very busy. We've taken a couple of weeks off for the holidays, but I'm extremely happy to have two of my favorite people, and that's Gretchen and Al Beatty. Guys, how you doing?
We're doing very good. Managed to survive the Christmas season and the weather with it, and now we're looking forward to the new year.
I tell you what, that what do they call it? A cyclone, Arctic cyclone, or whatever it was. We had days where we barely got into the positive numbers here in southern Missouri, and that is rare.
Yes, it is. We were talking with friends on a Zoom presentation that we do every Friday, and in Mississippi it's 21 degrees.
Yeah.
And we're in Idaho where it's supposed to be 21 degrees. It was like 40. And I said, boy, the world got tipped upside down somewhere.
Yeah, that's it's been yesterday was the first day that we got above freezing, and then Sunday it's going to be 60. So I will be out trout fishing on Sunday.
All right. We actually got up to 50.
Yeah.
Just after Christmas, like the day after or something. Melted all of our snow.
Yeah, we have nothing left of it, and hopefully the pond will be defrosted, and I'm going to go out and chase some of the little trout that they stock for us in wintertime here in Missouri.
Our little pond in our backyard, I looked out yesterday and I saw the two little eyes poked up. So I went out and our frog had surfaced. Guess he thought summer was here.
They never show up in December and January in Idaho. Yeah. So, yeah, like I said, things are different.
Yeah, that's for sure. I know, trout fishing obviously is something that all of us enjoy. But I've found when I'm fishing these little ponds where they stock trout for the wintertime, it's a totally different game to try and fish from those versus fishing in an actual river or stream. And it really puts it to the test on how you run things and how you float things, because there's no real current, so you're not really drifting a nymph or anything. And so it's one of those where it's a lot of fun, but it's also very challenging.
I think our most similar thing would be the Warren Ponds.
Yeah.
Up north of here, we have a mining area where they left these great big, huge, deep ponds, and they stock fish in there. And it's kind of different fishing there. We like to take kids there right after they stocked, though, because you can usually get a kid into a fish for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. Now we're not allowed to use any kind of artificial power bait style stuff or anything scented. But I have found a sinking leader and a fat bottom blob work really well for an egg pattern. And that seems to work really well for catching out of that particular area, and very small streamers, just really, really tiny woolly buggers, things like that.
Oh, sure.
I think a bugger was what Lainey caught hers on, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the same thing. Just her first fly she tied, we took her up there and she caught one with a bugger.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And you guys, when we start talking about fly fishing, does it insult you for people to be tying and catching with buggers, considering all the beautiful flies that you guys tie and put out?
We tie flies for a living. We have our 6 favorites, and probably one of the 6, maybe number 7, is going to be a woolly bugger. And I guarantee you, we've got 4 rods set up in the truck right now, ready to go. We just fold them down and stick them in their case with a flash fly on there. And I'll guarantee you, of those 4 rods, at least 2 of them have got buggers on them.
Well, and I kind of play with the bugger a little bit, make it look like a crayfish.
Yeah.
Okay.
And on the Payette River, there are crayfish just the right size for a bugger, and So we have used that on the Madison too. Buggers are good on the Madison, just below Ennis, would it be?
Yeah, it's below Ennis in the lower Madison River, just outside of Bozeman. And what Gretchen does is she takes a standard, like a size 4 or 6 brown woolly bugger, and ties on a little bit of poly yarn at the back of the hook and brings it up and splits the tail so the tail looks like claws. And basically, from there, it's a woolly bugger. All I can tell you is that it made the brown trout on the lower Madison for several years really stupid. They loved it like you couldn't believe.
Yeah.
In fact, I've got to tell you a story. It's a little off color, but not too bad.
Oh, do you have to?
Yeah. I was guiding customers, and as it turned out, I was taking them to the lower Madison on this particular day. And she said, "I've got a surprise for you in your lunch. You better check it out when you get to the river." Well, with the haste of getting to the river and getting clients all squared away and everything, I didn't find the surprise until lunchtime. And these new flies, I said, well, to the guys that I was guiding, I'll start you out with one of these after we finish lunch. So we headed down the river after lunch, and about the third cast, the kid up front, is into just a monster brown trout. Just could not believe it. And I said, well, this might be a pretty good fly after all. And about that time, we were passing a fairly high bank along the river, and this gorgeous blonde stood up. She didn't have a stitch of clothing on and said, "What's going on here?" The kid damn near fell out of the boat. I had to reach up, grab his belt, pull him back into the boat to keep from going over. And anyway, on down the river we went. She laid down back to whatever the heck she was doing in nature. And we call that a sighting of natural wonder. And that father and son came back to fish with me 5 years in a row. We never saw anything like that again. It just, sometimes things just happen.
I'd be there with you every weekend.
I'm chuckling.
But Al did take a lot of customers to the Madison after that.
Oh God, yeah. Madison was very popular.
Yeah, the Madison, that stretch of the Madison was one of our favorite places. Now there in the summer, there's just too many floaters floating in.
Mm-hmm.
So, but September is a really good time there for when the browns get kind of cranky and the floaters are gone, and it's an easy river to do your be the first time that you are in charge of the boat.
Oh yeah,
I learned how to row basically on that section of the river.
She rows as good as most guides, but believe me, there was a learning process to go from never rowing a boat to being as good as most guides. And
right,
it cost us a couple of fly rods in the river.
Just one.
One? Is that all? Okay. It was an anniversary present, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, stuff happens, and it's the other thing that happens a lot on that river. She was talking about the floaters. What she's talking about is basically college-age kids on inner tubes tied together with a piece of rope.
Yep.
Well, it was only a few days after this natural wonder sighting that we talked about that I had dropped anchor in a side channel to get a couple of customers untangled. It happens all the time in a boat. And so I was untangling, and we were chatting, and all of a sudden there was some screaming and laughing, and there was this bevy of about, 6 or 8 girls all tied together in these inner tubes. They hit my anchor, and they were wrapped around my boat both sides.
Oh, Lord.
I mean, that was another topic of discussion. That particular summer for me was, it sure brought me a lot of clients wanting to go to the Madison River for the extracurricular activities. But anyway,
there were a few floaters then, but nothing compared to what we saw last time.
Oh no, it was
it's just, and they put a bunch of campgrounds there, and they're just full.
That's something we're experiencing. The Spring River's been like that for a while, where it's like Mardi Gras on the water.
Yeah.
If you go on the weekends in the summertime, you get down there, you sort of figure out where you're going to fish at, and you fish for the morning, and then you sit around and have lunch and drink beer and watch the scenery go by, and then you fish in between them. Amazingly, you can catch fish in between groups of floaters.
Oh, yeah.
the fish are used to it by now.
Yep, they get used to it.
So,
Absolutely.
other than stopping every once in a while, sit down, have a beer, have a sandwich, wait for them to get through, and then start back again. But if you can cohabitate like that, because they're not going away, and the prices of kayaks coming down, and the easily availability at your big box store to get a kayak, you'll be fishing in the most remote part of southeast Missouri, and here 3 people will come with their radio booming down through the water, and you sort of let them through.
Sure.
It's not like it used to be at all when I was growing up.
I can't complain about it. The Boise River has a lot of floaters in the summer. As a kid, I was one of them. So,
Right.
I can't really complain. It was so much fun to float.
Yeah. And we have a lot of rivers around here. The Current River, especially, part of the Jacks Fork, the lower part of the Jacks Fork, which really isn't good for fishing anyway. A lot of those they run kayak and floater rentals out of, tube rentals out of. And, they've sort of always been those waters that people float. It's the new water that people are getting out into, where they are hitting different rivers and streams where they really never were in the past 10 years. That's sort of like, a lot more litter. You wind up picking up a lot more beer cans and stuff as you're fishing than you used to, things like that.
Sure.
Yeah. Our Payette River, the lower part of it, not up where we were fishing, but lower down is world-class kayak water, and there's always a lot of people on it, but it's not really the best place to fish anyway.
No,
the water's
it's
too heavy.
It's not great. But,
Yeah.
as an example, it wasn't last year, maybe it was 2 years ago. But anyway, just to tell you how world-class the water is for kayaking, the French team were visiting from France, practicing on that section of river. So it's a world-renowned section of river for the people that do that kind of stuff.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
no way I'd float that part of the river. Let me tell you what, it is reckless.
I've gotten myself into a couple situations where I didn't exactly look at the topography of the river that I thought I was going to fish, and it got very exciting.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Well, I almost fell out of when we got our new Avenger.
Yeah.
It's a two-person drift boat that we got several years ago. Well, we wanted to take some pictures for the manufacturer, and so I'm taking pictures, and Al is rowing, and we went through this new water park. Well, we had looked at it and kind of decided which way we were going to go, but we got down to one section, and there was another waterfall that we couldn't see from where we were looking, and I wasn't paying attention. Everybody on the bank was watching us.
Yeah.
And it was horrendous. I almost went over the side. Al grabbed me, pulled me back in, but I never stopped.
No, she never.
Photographing. I mean, it was a great picture.
She's after an advertising shot. She gets it. I'll guarantee you. Yeah, that's.
But we got clapping from the bank.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah, yes. The applause that we didn't go in the water, or maybe they were applauding.
It was close.
I don't know.
It was close. Al had to be pretty good oarsman to get us through that one.
I cannot tell you the number of times I have reached up and grabbed somebody on their way going out of the boat as you're going down the river, and you got to decide in a split second which oar you're going to drop and which hand you're going to grab with based on what's going on in the river around you.
Yeah. And, we talk a lot about this, but, I'm a small stream guy, but big rivers are dangerous, and if you get a lot of new folks out there that don't understand or don't know, especially, I don't know how many dams you guys have up there for generation. I hear stories all the time about guys getting stuck in the middle of the river when they're wading because they're not paying attention to water coming up around them. Has that been some experience you guys have had up in your area or just in different travels?
No. So
only time we've run into it is up fishing down in your general area on the White River in Arkansas. And that's one where, they blow a horn and you better get the heck out of the water or you're going to be swept downriver.
Yeah, I was kind of bouncing off the bottom one time fishing because the fish were just out of my reach. And Al finally said, "You get back in here." I lose control of what I'm doing when I see fish rising.
Yeah.
It's like I keep going and
she claims to be a lousy caster, but I'll guarantee you if there's some big old brown sipping out there in the weed along the weeds,
I cast the
She's one
anchors.
of the best casters I've ever known. So
Well, I will say that Gretchen was definitely at the white the wrong time of year this past year in 2022. The sow bug was great, but we had a major drought and they quit running generation and they were running minimal flow because the lake was so low. And so the white was at a stage that I don't think I've ever seen it at. You could literally take your kayak and were just as safe as going down it because the boats weren't running a lot of guides. The water was so much lower. It was incredibly different than anything I'd ever seen before.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, when I go there for that, for the sow bug and for teaching for Women's Connect, I don't even think about fishing. I can't, for some reason I just can't do the two things at once. I know a lot of
Yeah.
people do, but when I go to work, I work. However, the sow bug was a lot of fun.
Yes, yes, and it was really neat. I mean, we had everybody.
Yeah.
Rick was down there. He got to come in with Oasis benches, and he did a pretty good job. I met a lot of new people. We just had a really great time, and I know you guys aren't going to make it this year, but I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, we got to celebrate our anniversary this year. There's a conflict, so maybe next year.
Yeah.
Because I really did enjoy it. It's a good show. We're going to. We have our show in Boise coming up
Yeah. Next week, actually.
next week.
Okay.
So we're looking forward to that.
That'll be our first in-person show for a while.
Really?
Yeah, there's more than a few of the shows decided last year at the last minute to bow out and to either to cancel the show or go digital. And we've done digital shows. Those are sort of interesting. They're not the same. I'm not going to say they're bad, but they're just different. It's like you and I talking right now. I'd rather be talking across the table over a cup of coffee or a beer or whatever
Yeah.
than to be talking through this screen thingy. But that's what we've had to settle for in the new normal.
But this year's looking good. We've got the Boise show. We've got the show in Oregon.
Yeah, we've got 3 shows coming up.
And the Idaho Falls.
Yep. In fact, I was playing around because I've never live streamed with my handheld cell phone or smart.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I saw you were working on that.
I was working on that because we're going to be at some of these shows on our regular Friday night when we're normally doing a fly tying Zoom session. So
Right.
we're going to try doing a presentation live from the floor of the show in Boise, and we may as well do it at the hometown one. If it fails, well, then it fails. But
Yeah. Well, yeah, I noticed you were messing with the live streaming there, and I thought, well, I thought that's kind of neat. And then you said that what you were going to be doing, and I was like, well, that's kind of cool. You'll have it all set up right there so that people at the show can sort of join in by watching what you guys are doing.
Sure.
We are going to be doing the teaching that I was doing in person last year in Arkansas. Al did come in some, so we did a little bit of hybrid. So he came in on Zoom a bit. So we are going to teach some on that for them for that class, but we'll be doing it through Zoom.
Right. Now, when you go to a show, because I noticed, the sow bug, it seemed to be, and I'm assuming most shows are like this, there were a lot of guys that were just tying one fly. And there were other guys that were tying a variety of different flies or showing one particular style, whether it be, was it Mike George with deer hair? He was doing a couple of different deer hair flies, but he was mainly focusing on a rather simplistic one. There were some of the other great tyers that were tying one fly. Is that how you guys do when you go to your shows? Do you sit down and tie one fly, or do you tie a variety based off whoever's standing by you?
We go prepared based on X. And X can be, what are we there for? Number one, if we're there just to demonstrate fly tying at a fun show, then we usually go prepared to tie 3 flies, maybe 4, based on what we can get into our travel kit.
Right. Okay.
But on the flip side, if we are there to demonstrate for a fly shop that has hired us to be their presenter, then the first thing we do is we walk in to their booth and say, what are you not selling?
Right.
And okay, well then let's use that product and get it moving for you, because all products are good. It's just a matter of knowing how to use them. So that's another
Exactly.
thing. And then when we have our own booth, which we have our most experience at, we look at the same thing. We look at our product line and decide what do we need to demonstrate and go from there. So it's based on the situation.
Yeah. Yeah. That's sort of like last year, Rick was um, there and we had stuff from Fly Tires Dungeon. And I don't know how many people wound up purchasing stuff from whatever from Fly Tires Dungeon after they left, but everything we were tying and dubbing brushes we were making were all Fly Tires Dungeon stuff. And so it was sort of a nice boost, I guess, to the mad scientist that there were a lot of people there that hadn't heard of his stuff. But yeah, I mean that's a great way to look at it if you're tying for a shop to say what materials do you want to focus on moving today? Because a lot of folks will at a show go and pick up those materials if there's a fly shop there or if there's a business, a booth in the show selling stuff.
So the no, I don't want to sound like I'm saying anything negative about fly tires at shows, but the difference between us and the fly tires that are an executive or a doctor or whatever who's having a good time on his day off is different than somebody that runs a business. And
Oh
your
yes,
business is
yes.
there to, quite frankly, the last one of the key words in that last sentence was business, and you make decisions based on what's needed in regards to that business. I wanted to ask you one thing. You talked about Rick at Oasis. We did business with Rick for what, 30 years. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Rick is a
When he
long
first
time
started
friend.
doing the Oasis, we
Yeah.
were selling those in a kind of a kit with the vice we were selling.
Yeah,
And so,
yeah,
in fact, that it was the little wood that he kind of made
yeah.
specifically for us.
The little bench, he made it
Mm-hmm.
for us, and it proved to be a pretty good seller for him. And at that time, Rick didn't have the big product line. I think he was a school teacher, wasn't he? At one
He
time,
was he was a music teacher.
yeah. And then he was doing this on the side, and all of a sudden it kind of took off on
Well,
him.
then
And
he started doing the rain thing,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
and I think
yeah,
that's been really good for him.
Yeah, he quit doing benches basically right after Salbug through July 1st because the rainwater business was so good. And then I think he had a huge order that Feathercraft either got or is supposed to be getting. I talk to Rick about once a month. But yeah, the rainwater business that he's had is just phenomenal. But the dubbing brush tables that really took off. I mean, he couldn't have had that at a better time.
I'm collecting rainwater, but I got to figure out a better way to get it to my greenhouse because I've been carrying it by buckets, and frankly, my back is getting a little sore.
Get you a sump pump. Get you a sump pump and a hose and pump it up there.
Yeah, I should do something
that's a
different.
good idea.
Yeah, that's what you do.
We do have
So,
a tank heater in it now, so at least it's not freezing on me.
Now,
But,
of course, based on this morning, it wasn't going to freeze anyway. As you know, the temperature changed around a little bit, and we're supposed to be warmer the rest of this week and on into next week with a lot more rain. But I
yeah.
know you didn't get with us today to talk about rain and weather and all that stuff.
Just a minute though. We're excited.
Yeah.
Our water this year is looking good. The Boise
Good.
Hills have just been saturated. I think we're going to have a good water year.
Yeah,
So
Good.
fly fisher, that's important.
Yeah. Yeah, the amount of water and snow that you can keep to keep the water going through the summer. What are you guys looking at fishing? Are you guys going to travel anywhere this coming year to fish? Or are you guys just going to hang out locally and fish? Or what do you got on the agenda?
yes, all of the above, and we're looking real serious at a trip to Texas. There's a fellow that did a presentation on our Zoom Fridays that we have every Friday, and he fishes the barrier islands of the Texas coast. I've never done that, and the way he describes it, it's just something that's one of those got to do on my list kind of a thing. And we're looking at
I'm
going
losing
to Missouri. Huh?
I'm losing the name. I think it's the same guy we both know. He does a lot of deer
Ron
hair.
Mayfield.
Yes, Ron. Yeah,
Yeah,
Mayfield. He's
he
a
is
hoot.
quite a gentleman and one heck of a fly tire for the style of
Oh,
flies that he ties.
yeah,
Well,
he's been on
also,
the show.
we spent a little bit of time last year on the Salmon River And also then there's the Marsh River, which is just flows out of the Frank Church primitive area, right there on the edge of the primitive area. You can park and walk in a ways to the primitive area, and it's a medium-sized creek, would you
Yeah,
say?
it's a medium-sized
Very
creek.
cold, very
Hmm.
coming out of the protected area. That's kind of a cool place. So
Yeah.
those two places, and then I always yearn to go to the Yellowstone. I mean, it is
Yep.
it. I love floating the Yellowstone.
Yeah,
That's
I guided it for years. I mean, I've got trees that I would have to roll around that are old buddies. They've got names now. I mean, it's and I'm joking with you, but
well,
that's the place is. Even though it changes every spring with the runoff, it still is the same old river.
they had
Yeah.
a big runoff this year, so there's going to be some. I mean,
Yeah. Start to say they
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 had
had
a
a
big
had a
time, yeah.
substantial change this year.
We watched one time the Gallatin on a flood year, and we went down to watch, and actually that river was moving big, huge boulders. I could not believe.
Boulders as big as a car,
Oh yeah.
and
just
it's just amazing the amount of power in that water. It just
Yeah.
wow, blow your way.
And I think that's one thing that a lot of new folks, and there's going to be a lot of people that are brand new that just unwrapped a fly tying vise for Christmas, or they just got their first fly rod. And some of those guys aren't experienced anglers, and really trying to impress upon them the most important piece of equipment you can have on the water is your life vest or your flotation device,
Yep.
because it's the power of water. You're not stopping it.
I've seen the Salmon River throw great big huge trees, probably with a girth of 12 feet up in the air. I mean, just
Yeah.
water was just so horrendous.
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 I think I was trying to combine two words.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I'll go swimming in the Salmon River, and I floated through some of that world-class primitive area, Salmon River, and there's parts of it you can get in the water, but there's parts of it you don't want to.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's, it always cracks me up when you're down at Cotter and you've got, it's 110 degrees with, 85% humidity, and everybody's out there and their waders trying not to die. And then you look over and where that little backwater pool is of 50-degree water, the kids are in there swinging on the rope swing.
Yeah.
But nice, not in the main channel, not in with the force of the water. But yeah, it's always interesting to see how different people react to the temperature of the water like that, because I'm sitting there going, if I get wet, I'm going to die because it's just too cold for me.
Well, I kind of am a wet wader. I prefer to wet wade. I know it drives Al crazy, but I was wet wading that Marsh Creek last summer, and I mean it was cold. That
Yeah.
coming out of the primitive area, that is cold water.
Yeah.
But my feet were kind of sore that day, and that
Yeah.
cold water was perfect for them. It was kind of like a cold pack.
And see, I'm one of those, I can't do it anywhere I go that's trout fishing. I've got a pair of thick, heavy waders and I've got a pair of summer waders. And I just cannot do the wet wading in that cold 50-degree water.
I guess I grew up doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, putting on cutoffs and tennis shoes
Yeah.
and following my dad down the streams. We never wore waders. He never wore waders.
Yeah. Well, I only fished. I mean, honestly, the water we have up here, the temperature of the water, it's all warm water. So when we go fishing for smallies, yeah, we're wet wading all the time. But that when you drop down into trout water, I go, nope.
It's just refreshing.
I tell you what, I always like to swim in the warm water, or to fish in the warm water, because if I get too hot, I can jump out and take a swim.
Yeah. Sure. Yep.
So what are you going to be fishing? What are you going to be chasing down in Texas? Redfish, or what are you going after?
We don't know. It's such a brand new thing for us. Whatever is in the Barrier Islands area, Ron tells us that he'll put us into whatever we need to know. So,
I'll tell you what, I'm sure he will.
New experience for us.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about a trip with some of my women friends down to Texas specifically for redfish.
Yeah.
We'll see
Yeah.
if everybody could get their act together. We were going to go this year, but one of them became a new grandma, and well, the baby went out. The other one moved to to Alaska, so we have to get her down from Alaska to do it. So maybe we'll get that together this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Texas offers a wide variety of fishing, and along the coast there, they've got a lot of really good fishing. I know I talked to a guy, of course, at a hotel bar. I talked to a guy down in Houston, and just talking about the fishing along the coast down there is just absolutely amazing, and it's a beautiful, beautiful piece of country down there too.
Yeah, and we have relatives. I have a sister down there, and we have a granddaughter in the area, so we can visit a little
Kind of
family.
a little bit of everything. And we're looking at a trip to Missouri as well.
Oh, cool. Where are you coming out here?
Well, the Fly Fishers International is planning on having a rendezvous for the fly tying segment of the organization in
Branson.
Branson,
Branson.
Missouri. Yeah,
Oh, cool.
about the
When's that?
end of September.
Okay. Well, I'll try and make it over there then.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll keep try to keep you informed. It
Yeah.
should be a fun one. Right now they're kind of back and forth whether they're going to go to one of the big hotels and have everybody open it up and have a general fly show, or if the fly tires are going to just keep doing their thing and it's a smaller venue, which is a lot less expensive. So it's still kind of wishy-washy exactly how the show's going to look, but
Yeah. Now, the last 2 years, they had the November show online. Did you guys participate in that?
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
we did.
How did that go?
I would say if you were to put a percentage number on it, it ran about 80% successful. I would say the year before it ran closer to 90% successful. So I think I'm not, we will always have digital presentations as part of our day to day life from now on. But
Yeah.
I still think the in person thing, you cannot beat reaching out your hand and shaking Sean's hand
Yeah.
in person rather than across the digital airwaves.
Yeah. I would totally agree with that. Just going, down to the sow bug and, getting to meet Gretchen because, she was there. Al, I don't know where you were that weekend. But that was, because we'd talked before through this medium, but to actually sit down, have a glass of wine and talk about fishing was a totally different experience.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
I had a good time at the Salbug. I'd like to go back. I mean, there's some of the most fun people at that show. We will miss our friend who has passed away since,
Yes, we will.
and I was
And it
glad
was,
to have seen him for the last time. I was able to
yeah.
visit with he and Emily a little bit.
Yeah, and Rick stopped by and spoke with him for quite a while too. And seemed to be in good spirits and seemed to have a great show. From
He was
everything that I had noticed.
a little vague kind of. He kind of
Yeah.
wasn't quite like he used to be. I could see a difference. It took him a while to kind of to get into talk. I don't know. It's just you could tell he was aging, and Emily was
Yes.
kind of being Emily, taking care of him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah,
I know it was the highlight for a lot of folks that hadn't got to meet him before, and have him draw a picture and sign it and things of that nature. And it was really a highlight for a lot of people. So,
and then of course I went to that dinner they had. I don't know if you participated in that where they gave him an award.
yes. Yeah. I went to the dinner. I was sitting there with the Texas boys.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, me and the Texas guys, we hung out all weekend. It was me and Rick and everybody from Texas.
Yeah, those guys.
And I don't know if you noticed this or not. They had all of the Lone Star beer for people to drink. I think it was Lone Star they had. Well, Adam, he goes by Bob and Slinger. I don't know if you've met him or had the pleasure of meeting him or not. Every time we got done drinking a beer, we would sort of put our can over in front of him. And when everything was all said and done and they were leaving, this guy walks by and puts his hand on Adam's shoulder and says, "You can take some beer home if you need to." And about that time, he looked down and realized that he had about 12 empty cans of beer in front of him. But the barbecue they had for dinner was great. It was really nice to see everything that they'd done. I couldn't believe how much a pie went for in the auction.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Was it like $400?
Something, it was huge, wasn't it? And
Yeah.
wasn't it the Texas boys were involved in that, weren't they?
There was a group of Texas guys involved in that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty funny. And then there were some things I was like, wow, I really would have thought that would have gone for a lot more.
Yeah.
But it seemed like everybody had a good time. And then, of course, we had our private party with Patty, and that was great. A lot of the Texas guys were there. Mike Lack was there. He's a neat guy. I tell you what, Mike is a neat guy. But yeah, it's just really awesome to see
Yeah,
and
we
meet
had
some of
about
these people.
30 people, I think, at Patty's.
Yeah, yeah,
30
it
people.
was it
She's
was
got
really
quite a
nice.
cabin on the river, doesn't she?
Yes. Oh my goodness. I just stood there and looked out the window. I'm like, my Lord, this is amazing. But yeah, it's a beautiful place and a beautiful part of America too. I mean,
Yeah.
that's if you haven't fished Cotter or down in Arkansas, man, I talk about it all the time on this podcast. People get sick of it, but it's just so beautiful. It's not like any place else you've been.
Well, I'll tell you, Catherine and I explored a great deal of Arkansas when we drove from what's the town that I landed in?
Little Rock.
Little
yeah,
Rock.
from Little Rock to Mountain Home.
Yep.
Well, we took the long route. At one point, Catherine said to me, "Are we in a parking lot again?" That gives you an idea of how bad it was. And Patty and the crew were waiting for us, and they finally started calling to see if we were lost. And I said, well, actually, we got stopped by a policeman at one point.
Oh,
And,
Lord.
you know, Kathy Burns is, I don't know if you remember her. She's gray hair, very groomed, funny lady. She's
Yes.
about 80 years old. So she's driving, and it's like 10 o'clock at night, and this policeman stops us and says, well, it's a long story why he stopped us, but he had somebody stopped, and we didn't get far enough over, and so they followed us and pulled us over. So he said, after he chastised Kathy for her driving, he said, "Where are you ladies coming from?" And we told him, and he said, "Where are you going?" And we said, "Mountain Home." And he said, "Do you know how to get there?"
You can't get there from here.
And she said, "Well, I think we're on the right road, aren't we?" And he kind of goes, "Oh my gosh." So then he gave us directions, which of course we totally ignored.
Yeah.
And I had my cell phone. That's what we were using, you know. But I had the wrong place. I had the wrong address for Patty's place, and we ended up someplace in town. So it was,
Yeah.
I mean, it took us a long time. Next time I go, I'm going back to Springfield.
Yes.
I'm not gonna go into, I mean, that's a better road to get to.
Yeah. Yeah, that it is. Or, you know, I mean, it's whenever I leave here to go, it's pretty straightforward until you get off the main road in Mountain Home. And I turned on my altimeter just to see. It's over a 350-foot elevation drop from the highway down to Patty's house.
No kidding. Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yes.
Yes.
It's just.
And I'm sitting there going,
you'd almost have to back around the corner.
yep. Yeah, oh yeah, the corners are I mean, we're talking it's just straight down the mountain. But it is so beautiful, you know, of a morning coming up out of there. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
So I was really happy to be part of that, and I'm really excited. I'm really excited about being a part of it in the future. Do you guys, if you're going to travel in the States, where do you prefer to travel to?
Montana.
Stay close to home.
Our first 10 choices are Montana. We ended with Montana, and it's just different towns in Montana.
Right.
I love it.
We moved away from Montana. Well, we left Montana to accept a job at Whiting Farms, a hackle producer. And I was their marketing director for a couple of years. And Gretchen's parents got to the point where they needed help. And so we moved back to Boise to help them, and not knowing how long that responsibility would take to complete. And it ended up taking 10 years. And we looked at each other when that responsibility reached its sunset and said, "Are we ready for another move back to Montana?" and we weren't. It just
Yeah.
we reached the age where another move just didn't look very attractive. So now our trips to Montana are seriously the first 10 places are Montana, different parts.
Well, we
Right.
also there's some really neat places in Idaho we go, and
Oh,
what we
absolutely.
do is we camp beyond cell signal. That's kind of
Right.
our thing. And we found a new little stream just north of here, way up and there's actually a Forest Service campground there, and nobody's ever there. I mean, we have this
Fourth,
beautiful.
4th of July weekend, and there's one other camper in a campground. So you can tell what it's like. And it's not that way in Idaho. I mean, you have to
Yeah.
reserve campgrounds ahead, probably like you do in Missouri.
This is
Mhm.
just an amazing place. Now the stream is very small, and the fish are very small, little brookies. But and there are bear.
Right.
So, you need to be aware of what you're doing. But it is a gorgeous, talk about a beautiful place, a beautiful stream. Um, I don't know.
And it's 19.26 miles past cell signal.
Well, that's not bad then. You guys
Long
are
way.
lost in the wilderness.
It's almost on the Idaho Montana border.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
places like that. And then there's a lot of places just on the edge of the primitive area that we go. There's a Big Creek is a place where a lot of fly fishers go. You go and park at the end of the road and walk up. So there's a lot of places in Idaho
Yeah, we
to
don't have.
fish.
If we were 30 years old, we don't have enough life left to go to all the places that Idaho has to offer without ever crossing the state line in any direction.
And then there's a lot of high mountain lakes that are just fantastic.
Yeah.
If you
I hear a lot of folks talking about fishing those. What is that like?
It's
Oh,
pretty phenomenal. I'm going to tell you a little bit about, because I fished a gob of high mountain lakes. A lot of them are the kind of places where either the trees are right smack to the water line, or you've got a rock cliff right to the water line. Backcasting for fly fishing is almost impossible.
Mhm.
And I've quite frankly, I'll be honest with you, I've put a closed face spin reel on my fly rod, and I offer the fly to the fish using a bubble fly combination.
Gotcha.
And I got to tell you, there are times when that combination will outfish any regular fly presentation, because I think what happens is that, number one, the fish sees the disturbance of the bubble, and it's a clear bubble, and they said, "Oh, what's that following along behind?" And that's the fly. And so it gets their attention, where sometimes just stripping a fly through the water doesn't grab their attention. And the other time is on a river, and I probably shouldn't even tell people this, but if you've been on any of the rivers where caddis are hatching, the female caddis will kind of bounce up and down on the water as they go along, drives the fish crazy. Well, what you do with that situation, again using a fly rod with a bubble, put the bubble out on the end, and you come about 4 or 5 foot up from the bubble and put a caddisfly dropper on. Cast it out, and then raise your rod, pull the fly off the water, drop your rod, and you've got a bouncing caddis. You cannot fish that way, any way possible, with a standard fly up setup. It is a killer presentation.
Okay,
well,
I'm doing that.
Last time we went to one of our mountain lakes, it was Louie Lake was the name of it, and it's got cutthroat. And there we were just, the killer fly that day was little red ants.
Yep. And it was just, look at the environment, see what's going on.
Yeah.
And it was just, if you were fishing anything else, you weren't catching.
You were wasting time.
That was crazy. And it took us a while to figure that out. And once we figured that out, we had a pretty good day. But I'll tell you, that is not easy getting to. And that's one of the easier. Some of these lakes are hard. It's a hard hike.
Yeah.
Big boulders and
we're getting to the age where those hard hikes are not in the game plan. I'm 80 here in a couple of days, and that's different than being 60 or 70. Tell you straight up.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. I know it's just at staring down 50 and looking at what I did 10 years ago, and I'm like, I really don't want to hike that far.
Oh yeah, I understand.
We
you
can still
know.
wade the river, but I keep telling Al, I think it's time to start hiring a guide and have somebody take us down the river. He just cannot do that. He just
Hey,
can't do it.
I
Are
was
you going to
invited.
hire a guide or are you going to hire somebody to row so you can tell them what to do?
No, I think I might hire a boat and row it myself,
There you go.
so I don't have to haul a boat with me.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. That's the way to do it. Um, guys, this is awesome. So big plans, I guess, staying around and going to Texas. You guys sound like you're living life to the fullest.
We are. The only thing we haven't done is got bored, so bored that we had to write another book. It's a, invariably what has happened in the past is that, well, what do you got going today, Al? Oh, Gretchen, I don't know, something, and we'll get to drinking coffee, and she'll grab her notebook. I know I'm in trouble then. She'll start taking notes because it's either honeydew projects or she'll start outlining another book. And the next thing you know, we've got another 6 month project setting in front of us of a book
Yep.
to write. And
Right.
that's how most of them have happened is that we'll be driving down the freeway or sitting and having coffee at home and start taking notes on, well, what do we want to have happen in this book? And that hasn't happened yet this year. And this year is almost done. But we got a whole new year in front of us, so who knows what's going to happen?
I
I
started to
am
say.
doing a second edition on we have a family cookbook, and I'm
Yeah.
doing edition 2 on that.
Oh, that'll be nice.
Yeah.
Are there any new flies that you've been working on or anything that you've seen lately that you think are interesting that you think are going to move the industry in 23?
Got two new ones. I can't say they're going to move the industry, but we're going to be presenting one on Friday night, and it's a fly that has a history. Basically, it's a 3 dimensional streamer fly,
Okay.
and we call it wire wings. And basically, we take a flat feather wing fly and turn it into a fly with dimension all the way around, so it's got dimension from every direction.
I'll be tuned in for that.
Please do. Do you have the link?
I was just going to, you guys do it on Facebook, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just watch on Facebook.
Okay, great. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, and the other one, I've got a fly that we showed on several weeks ago. I lose track of it. We had got so much going on here, but several weeks ago, and we called it the double E, and it's a new wet fly. It's tied with one feather and thread. That's it.
Nice.
And it started out as a joke. At the end of our Zoom sessions last year, and it proved so doggone good on the water that it's not a joke anymore. And we've done some improvement on it, and we'll be continuing to do it. And I've got, let's see, I'm looking at my fly tying desk right now. It looks like I got about 3 dozen of them laying there for my own fly box. So
Nice.
I don't tie 3 dozen of anything for me unless I know that it's going to be doing me some good.
Well, definitely. And we can go back and watch those, the listeners can go back and just follow you through is it on YouTube too? Or is it just on Facebook?
Yeah, we take everything that goes to Facebook, and the next day we edit out any of the dead spots and
Right.
the foul ups or whatever, and then we upload a shorter version to YouTube. So it's
Okay.
on YouTube.
Yeah. So anybody that's listening can just go over there and watch it and see that fly.
It's and it's one of the things we learned. It's amazing where you learn about tying flies. But anyway, this fly is tied from front to back and back to front. You tie materials in on both ends of the fly, and you meet in the middle.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll definitely look at that here in a few minutes.
We learned this of all the crazy places. Now, in our wanderings when we were in Bozeman, we met some people who had a fly factory in Malaysia. In fact, they had 2 of them in Malaysia, and their main offices were in Sri Lanka. And anyway, the Malaysian government decided to put together a tax-free zone, and it was very advantageous for these factories to move into the tax-free zone. However, they were not allowed to bring any stuff manufactured in the taxable area into the tax-free area. Pretty obvious,
Right.
straightforward. So anyway, bottom line is we got a chance to buy out a fly factory in Malaysia. We bought everything from the dirt on the floor, thread scraps, bare hooks, and about 10,000 dozen flies.
Wow.
And we got some flies, and we'd look at these flies, and Gretchen, how did they tie this? And they were tying some stuff that had been tied from both ends, some tied from front to back rather than back to front. And in one of them, I still haven't perfected it. I can get it to turn out about once in 10 tries. They would take 2 hackles on a dry fly, tie them on at the front, grab them with a hackle pliers, wrap forward, tie them off, and they'd end up with the wings in the middle of the hackle application, exactly as a feather wing dry fly would have been. All done, just wrap, 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 tie off, done. And the wings would be perfectly placed in the middle of the hackle application. Well, I can get it to come out about once in 10. They're going to take me a lot more tries than just that to get the exact measurements out. But it was phenomenal to see that. I asked Gretchen, I said, when we looked at these flies, these are they went down to size 24 blue-winged olives. And they were doing this in a size 24. And I said, Jesus criminy, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So we've been trying to perfect that. But from that batch of flies, we learned about tying front to back. We thought we knew a little bit about it. Anybody that's tied a elk hair caddis the proper way does some back to front tying because they put the body on and then they in the hackle and then they rib forward with the wire to hold the hackle in place. And,
right.
That's some back to front tying. Well, this was to the extreme. And we've got a whole series of flies that we do now that are all tied backwards.
Nice.
Nice. I've been busy exploring wings made out of brushes,
Okay.
Wings and tails.
Wings and tails.
Wings and tails.
And so, I went through all of our paint brushes, and no, there's just nothing there that really works very good. But now I'm into cosmetic brushes.
Uh-huh.
Are you able to see? Are the people on this podcast seeing anything, or are we just going in verbal?
When we go to when I put it up to YouTube, they'll be able to watch, but most people just listen.
Okay, well, that fly that I told you with dimension, I'm going to hold one up here, and you can kind of get a see what it looks like.
Oh wow! Yeah, that is really cool. So yeah, definitely if you're listening to the show, you'll definitely want to hop over to YouTube and move up to the 50-minute mark here and check this out. That is really neat. And while you're there, go over and check out Gretchen and Al's page, and you can see how to tie it. So, yeah, I think the most exciting thing I'm working on right now is I'm an articulated hellgrammite for smallmouth bass up here in my area. That's what I'm working on.
Flies, absolutely love them.
Yeah, I tell you what, they're killer. They work for smallmouth bass. They're just amazing. I can't get enough of them.
We did a lot of LaFontaine's articulated flies at one point in time, yeah.
Another thing, when you talk about articulated and subsurface flies, give you a tip on something. Take marabou, and instead of just tying a marabou tail on, do you know how to do a 3-stranded braid like you're braiding a Boy Scout rope or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay, take some marabou strands and braid it into an extended body for a damsel.
Never thought about that.
Killer, absolute killer.
Huh. We'll definitely have to give that a whirl.
And it is pretty easy to do. Most everybody can do a 3-stranded braid.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I'll have to give that a try. Guys, I tell you what, this has been absolutely wonderful, guys. I appreciate you giving up your time for me today.
We appreciate you having us. We hope. Well, when will the podcast air?
We'll drop it. It'll be the first Wednesday after the new year. So that's when everybody will be there. So the flies we discussed today, people can go back and watch those on YouTube, and then we'd be geared up by Friday night to head over to YouTube and watch you guys tie again.
Wonderful. So, well, Ed, if we're signing off, next time you talk to Rick Weinsberg, give him our best. We think the world of him.
I will. I definitely will. He is a 1 in a million guy.
Sure is.
Guys, this is Sean for Kayak Flyer. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. The Beatties, really some of the greatest people you'll ever meet in fly fishing. And if you get a chance to head to one of the fly shows they're going to be at, I would highly recommend it. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Bye.
See you now.